Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the press conference on the informal video conference of Ministers of European Affairs, also known as the General Affairs Council. I'd like to take this chance just to introduce myself. My name is Anna, and I will be the spokesperson you will see for the next 6 months. In the beginning, Secretary of State for European Affairs, Ana Paula Zacarias, will make a statement, and then Vice President Šefčovič will follow. Madam Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all that are joining us today. We have just finished our first meeting of Ministers of European Affairs. Sadly, it had to take place by video conference, but this did not reduce the quality of our debate and our discussion. I had the pleasure to discuss with my colleagues the priorities of the Portuguese presidency for the next 6 months. There are 3 main priorities: promoting European recovery leverage by the climate and digital transitions. The second one is delivering on the European Pillar of Social Rights as a key element to ensure fair and inclusive climate and digital transitions, leaving no one behind. And finally, strengthening the strategic autonomy of a Europe that is open to the world. 2021 will be time to deliver. That's for sure. Time to deliver a fair, green and digital recovery. This is our motto for the next semester, and we are determined to use the financial instruments at our disposal to move forward. After presenting the priorities of the Portuguese presidency, we moved on to the Conference on the Future of Europe. The 3 institutions, Council, Parliament and Commission, are yet to agree on a joint statement on the way forward. We are discussing this matter at the highest level with the different institutions, and we need to find a way forward, a quick and pragmatic way to solve the issue of governance. So I really would like to see this developing very quickly in the future, and to have the citizens discussing medium and long-term policies that will address our current and future challenges. We will continue the institutional negotiations. Our Prime Minister will be here in a couple of days, and we will continue the discussions also with the President of the European Parliament and the different political families. So we remain fully committed to the conference and to organising it start at the beginning of our presidency. The last element that we discussed was coordination on COVID-19. We pushed forward this meeting of the General Affairs Council so that we could have more information to pass on to our heads of state and government, and so that they can do a really informed discussion on the 21st. The public health situation across Europe is really in a very difficult situation, and we will have certainly a couple of very difficult weeks. So we need to strengthen our European coordination and to provide a united front to respond to this common challenge. We discussed with our colleagues the need to vaccinate as many people as possible and as quickly as possible. We discussed the vaccines that are available. We need to look into mutual recognition of antigen tests, and also to increase our ability to identify and track the various mutations of the virus. And we hope that we have developments in the coming days on this issue of the mutual recognition of tests and tests results. Vice President Šefčovič outlined the plans of the Commission to accelerate the vaccine supply and the vaccine roll-on or roll-out, and he also gave us some information on the communication that the Commission will issue tomorrow. Finally, I think there was a unanimous call from all Member States that we need to work together. We need to continue to work together. This capacity that enables us to get the vaccines at the end of last year, the joint procurement, the joint delivery of the vaccines represent indeed a huge success of the European Union. It's a great example of the European Union added value. So we will continue. The work is not over. We need to accelerate, to look into many other elements, for instance, vaccination certificates. We need to discuss this matter. And also we need to look into the international domain. How are we going to support our neighbours, our international partners? This is part of our global responsibility, and we will work with the External Action Service to strengthen our work on COVAX and other possibilities. So, in short, I'm very pleased in the way the meeting was finalised, and all in all, I think we were all in agreement in the sense that only together we can fight this crisis, and only together we can promote the collective safety of our citizens and increase the trust of the citizens in what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really would like to acknowledge how productive the first meeting under the Portuguese presidency and very able chairmanship of Minister Zakaria was this morning and part of this afternoon, and I think that the mood in the room clearly reflected the common feeling that there is no time to lose as we keep fighting the pandemic and its fallout on our economies and our societies. The meetings of the Ministers for European Affairs will continue to play a crucial role to make sure that we will remain well coordinated every step of the way, and that on the level of General Affairs Council and Europe Minister we do our utmost to prepare well the meetings and the discussions on the level of the head of states and government. We also concluded that one of the major tasks during the Portuguese presidency is to shift from crisis management to sustainable recovery, and therefore I very much welcome the priorities of Portuguese presidency, which are centred around the recovery that is green, digital and socially fair, while contributing to Europe's strategic autonomy. We agreed, as I've just said, that time is of the essence when we speak about recovery, and therefore we count on the presidency to lead the efforts in implementing the new multiannual financial perspective and the next generation EU package, as well as to ensure smooth handling of recovery and resilience plans in the Council, because every day of the pandemic puts additional strains on our economies and on our European jobs. The Commission wants to start disbursing money to the Member States under the Portuguese presidency, so that the people around Europe can see the concrete benefits of this unique financial package. That is also why the Commission welcomes Portugal's plan to organise a social summit in Porto on the 7th of May. And I think today the reactions from our colleagues in the room have been very clear that it couldn't come at a better time, as we must do whatever it takes to address the high social costs of the pandemic. We have also discussed, as Ana Paula already mentioned, the conference on the future of Europe, and I very much appreciated the strong commitment by the Prime Minister Costa to resolve the outstanding issues related to governance and the issue of chairing of the conference in particular. We all concluded that it's high time to open the conference, as the expectations from Europe are high, and with the pandemic they are set to further rise. The conference can be a powerful tool to help us balance some of the disruptions by listening to what people have to say, by gathering their feedback and ultimately allowing them to shape EU policies. We spent most of the time, nevertheless, preparing the leaders' discussion later this week, to which the Commission will contribute by communication due tomorrow. It will focus on ways to speed up vaccination and vaccine supplies, ramp up testing and sequencing to manage infections and the new variants, ensure the functioning of the single market, and show international leadership and solidarity, especially to our neighbours. It is clear that before the benefits of the vaccination reach a scale to allow the lifting of restrictions, the EU faces a major challenge to address the risk posed by new variants sparking new spreads of virus. We first need to accelerate the vaccination and vaccine supplies, because vaccines on their own achieve nothing. The Commission has so far secured almost 2.3 billion doses, the broadest portfolio in the world, which will allow more than 1 billion people in Europe and its neighbourhood to be vaccinated. But receiving the supplies is not the same as vaccinating, and yearly data suggests significant differences between member states in the percentage of people vaccinated. We must therefore close this gap between delivery and vaccination, while staying largely synchronised for health and single market reasons. To keep track of progress as of this week, the ECDC will be collecting from member states two key numbers twice a week. The first, how many vaccines have been delivered from manufacturers, and second, how many vaccinations have taken place. We also believe that concrete vaccination targets for all member states could prove helpful. We also need to ramp up the supply of vaccines, notably by working with manufacturers to maximise production capacity in the EU. This can mean investing in new manufacturing plants, securing agreements between manufacturers to repurpose their companies, and overcoming any obstacles in the supply chain. We must also be able to analyse all the data concerning vaccinations rolled out in the member states, as this data helps us to track the effectiveness of the vaccination throughout Europe. National electronic immunisation system and interoperable vaccination certificates will be therefore of utmost importance. We are already working with the member states to develop guidelines aiming to ensure European interoperability between vaccinations certificates. As we can see, vaccination is clearly a race against time, especially as new variants of the virus take hold. And this brings me to our second task, an urgent need to speed up sequencing by expanding our capacities, so that we better understand how the virus is evolving, and we can track its variants and detect the new ones. We should strive for all EU member states to increase the capacity of sequencing of positive test results. The ECDC has the capacity to complement and supplement national genome sequencing capacity, and we must share information on genome sequencing and its results throughout the EU and globally as soon as possible. If needed, vaccine development and production plans can be adapted to new mutations. Effective testing also continues to play a critical role if we are to succeed. Although PCR tests remain the gold standard, the use of rapid antigen tests should be expanded. Generally, we say more tests, more reliable tests, and more mutual recognition. We are also directly helping member states scale up their testing capacity via direct purchases and joint procurement of the test. And lastly, let me add that the EU should continue to lead efforts to ensure wider international access to vaccines. We must pay special attention to the Western Balkans and to our eastern and southern neighbourhood on the basis of zero waste, which require that recipient countries are to be sufficiently prepared. With the prospect of some 2.3 billion doses of vaccine secured, the EU is in the position to assist primarily through COVAX, the global alliance to develop and purchase vaccines for low and middle-income countries, or by complementing it. The Commission is ready to coordinate our joint efforts in this area. So, as you see, a lot on our plate in these days, weeks and months to come, but I would totally agree with the characterization presented by Anna Paula that today it was very clear spirit and sense of unity and the importance of the coordination, which must remain the backbone of our response to the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Madam Secretary of State. Now, as my German colleagues would say, without further ado, let's open the floor to questions. Don't forget to turn on your camera and your microphone. Clearly state your name and who you address your question to. So we will start with Athanasios. Please, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Athanasios, Cyprus News Agency, and Star TV Greece. I have a question for the both of you, and it has to do with the vaccination certificate. So first of all, since this new kind of certificate will, let's say, bring some special benefits to those who are vaccinated, how are you planning to solve the legal questions arising from such, let's say, a legal move, a certificate that, let's say, facilitates travel, for instance? And secondly, did the Greek side that brought forward the proposal or anybody else bring also concrete scientific data that there is, let's say, no danger for transmission by those who are already vaccinated? Or do you have evidence that suggests the opposite? Or, I don't know, what is the concrete scientific data saying about exactly that? Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary of State, you have the first word, please.
Thank you very much for your question. I think there are still many uncertainties that we need to address. There are many. We have been living in this state of uncertainty about how the virus mutates, what is the efficiency of the vaccine. So far, everything seems to be fine with the vaccines, and we hope that we can achieve great results. But in terms of the certificates, it's also, we need to continue the debate. I think there is a need to continue this debate because the certificate can be a proof that you are vaccinated. But the second layer of discussion is what you can do with this proof. So for one way is to say, well, you have a certificate that proves that you have been vaccinated, that's all, and then we have to decide what to do with it. And then there is also the discussion, if these certificates, how do we recognize them at European level, and if there is a digital platform or not. So I think there are still a lot of elements that need further discussion, and I am sure that the Greek letter will be a very interesting element to steer this debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think that we had very good discussion on all aspects of the importance of these vaccination certificates. I think what is the most important dimension of this effort right now is to gather the data, to make sure that we can use the collected data for medical purposes, for assessment of the efficiency of the vaccines, for evaluation of the whole vaccination process. And for that purpose, we need to make sure that the data would be collected electronically in respect of all data privacy rules, and it should be done on interoperable platforms so we can share the data, and of course the medical professionals, and in our case especially EC, DC and EMA can really benefit from the proper analysis of this data. Later on, for sure, the question will come how these certificates could be used for wider purposes. And therefore, I think it was very clear from the presidency point of view, from the Commission point of view, that vaccination is voluntary. We will have, I'm sure, a lot of people who, for example, cannot be vaccinated because of medical purposes, and some of them just simply wouldn't like to be vaccinated, and therefore we are taking all the precautions that we would not create any ground for different treatment of these people or any kind of limitations of their rights. But these questions, I'm sure, will come to our table later, because in one case it could be for let's say travel purposes, the electronic vaccination certificate proof or the PCR negative test. But these are the questions for later, because we really want to make sure that first we have a system in place so we can use it for medical purposes, and all that discussion which you and questions which you presented will be debated in a greater detail later. But now we have to make sure that we have proper technical ability and platform which can process this type of data. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can move on to Thomas Gutscher from FAZ, please.
Yes, thanks a lot. I hope you can hear me. My question to both of you, but first of all to the Vice President, did I understand you correctly that you are advocating that nobody should enjoy its freedom or his or her freedom of movement before not everybody who wants to be vaccinated has actually been vaccinated? Did I get this right? And I'd like to ask the State Secretary whether she agrees with it, having in mind that your Prime Minister just called for the opposite, to open up for freedom of movement as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I think I'll give the chance to Mr. Vice President to go first, since the first question was addressed to him.
Yes, I said, I would say totally opposite thing.
Yeah.
Totally opposite thing, and I think all of us who are here at the podium, and I believe also all the other journalists who hear it would agree with me. So I will try to be clearer right now. What we discussed this morning was to create a proper platform for collecting and sharing the electronic data from vaccination. And I said that first and foremost, and I'm sure that for the months to come, we need it for medical purposes, for assessment of the effectiveness of the vaccination, for evaluation of the efficiency of our vaccination strategy. So that was the first purpose. For that, we should be able to share the data. We should be able to collect the data in full respect of all our data privacy and data collection rights and regulation, so the EMA or ECDC or the health authorities in our member states can fully benefit from the data analysis. And I said that eventually, in the future, there might be other purposes for using these certificates or the data, but I underlined, and I would do it here again, I would underscore that under no circumstances we want to create any kind of situation that those people who do not want to be vaccinated, or those people who cannot be vaccinated, for example, because of medical reasons, should be in any way limited in their rights and freedoms. And therefore, I'm sure that the experts will discuss it further. For example, today, in most of our member states, before you enter, you have to show PCR negative tests. So there will be different options how we should handle the issue of travel, and to that options and instruments we have available at this stage, the possibility of this electronic vaccination certificate could be added, but it would be up for the discussion how properly and what for purpose we can use it. So I hope that I was clear enough, but I'm sure that Anna Paula can complement my response.
Yes, indeed. Of course, the Prime Minister said, and we all said it also in the room this morning, we need to keep the borders open inside European Union, keep Schengen functioning, keep the internal market functioning. Of course, we had to have here a good equilibrium because we know that we're living through a very difficult moment in terms of the number of people infected. We don't know what will come with these different variants of the virus, but we need to struggle as much as we can to have Schengen fully functioning. And this is why, to ensure the movement of people, we need to have something. We need to have this mutual recognition of tests, mutual recognition of test results, and maybe in the future, when we have a certificate for vaccination, could also help in this endeavour. So the certificates and how they will be provided and their recognition, it's still certainly under discussion. But we need to keep movement open as possible inside the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to give the floor to Rita Cisa from Público.
Hi, thank you. I would just clarify, I would like to ask both of you if this, on this vaccination certificate or passport, so the debate on what to do with it, is it still based on the Greek proposal and just the Greek idea, or are there any other ideas that are being discussed? And also, Vice President, you mentioned that there are, issues with unfair treatment and not using all, people being deprived of their full rights. So I was wondering if you could give us a quick overview of some of these legal issues that might be related to this proposal. And then an unrelated question about the conference on the future of Europe, because also you mentioned that there was a plan by the Portuguese presidency to overcome this stalemate in terms of governance. Can we know what the plan is? Because we haven't heard it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Madam Secretary of State, please.
Muito obrigada, Rita, pela sua pergunta. Em relação à Conferência sobre o Futuro da Europa, como sabe, o Sr. Primeiro-Ministro estará aqui no dia 20 para encontros com o Presidente Sassoli e com diferentes membros do Parlamento para tentar encontrar uma solução que seja o mais pragmática possível e que nos tire deste impasse e que permita que realmente possamos iniciar esta caminhada junto com os cidadãos europeus de debate sobre as políticas europeias e, desta forma, também trazer os cidadãos a todas as políticas que nos farão sair da crise, porque não devemos ficar parados por causa da situação pandémica, podemos utilizar os meios virtuais para começar a trabalhar. A grande questão aqui é resolver a questão da governança, resolver os temas relativos à presidência desta conferência e, a partir daí, eu estou convicta que os outros elementos facilmente se poderão resolver e temos que estar prontos para, no momento em que se conseguir resolver esta questão política em total paridade entre as três instituições, tem que haver um equilíbrio muito claro entre as três instituições, Parlamento, Comissão e Conselho, e, a partir daí, a Comissão Europeia tem uma plataforma digital, multilingüe, onde poderemos começar a colocar os diferentes eventos que poderão começar a ser programados ao nível dos Estados-membros e poderemos começar a ter outras decisões sobre a dimensão da conferência, a sua organização. Portanto, trata-se de resolver primeiro com pragmatismo esta questão política e depois avançar. Quanto à outra questão que colocou em relação às vacinas, eu diria que a discussão hoje dos Estados-membros foi ampla. A Carta grega é um dos elementos deste debate, só um dos elementos. As visões são várias e, portanto, temos que trabalhar sobre o que fazer no futuro, discutir muitos detalhes também sobre o que fazer com essa prova, com esse certificado de vacinas, como fazê-lo, o que fazê-lo, como torná-lo interoperacional em termos da plataforma digital ou apenas fazê-lo como forma de ser reconhecido entre todos os países da União Europeia. Eu acho que falta ainda bastante debate sobre esta matéria para acautelar todas as questões que os Estados-membros levantaram em relação aos dados, em relação à privacidade, em relação às desigualdades que podem ser aqui introduzidas. Portanto, estamos no início desta discussão.
Yeah, I think there is very little what I can add to the Madam Secretary's response. I would only confirm that if it comes to the multilingual platform for the Conference on Future of Europe, it's ready, it's prepared, and that we in the Commission are really supporting the efforts of Prime Minister Costa to resolve the remaining issues with the chairing and the governance of the Conference of Future of Europe, so we can really start the conference as quickly as possible. On the other question, I think that Anna Paula responded it very well, and what I think was very important for the ministers, and clearly it's very important for the Commission, that we would treat all our citizens fairly and in a just manner. And that's our precondition. This is how we started this discussion, and it's clear that what we need to resolve right now are technical issues, so we can share the data, that we can have the mutual recognition of the data, that our health professionals and authorities can analyze this data for medical purposes, and all the issues will come to the table later. But of course, Europe is the continent of the fair treatment, non-discrimination, and this is our starting position for all debates on this issue. Thank you.
Eu só acrescentaria, Rita, que as palavras de base que foram ditas hoje foram transparência e confiança. Eu acho que são duas palavras muito importantes que temos que trabalhar nesta base entre nós e com os nossos cidadãos.
Thank you. We now move on to Jacopo Barigazzi from Politico.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Secretary of State Zacharias. The first one is on the conference, The Future of Europe, whether the idea of having a trio presidency was discussed and whether anyway the debate among ministers involved also some names or whether no names were mentioned today. And secondly, I have another question on the Commission trip to Portugal, because we have 3 so far commissioners that got into self-isolation, and then we have a minister for finance who tested positive. So since you talk about transparency and trust, the health system in Portugal is under a great burden, and I wonder whether it was the right message for citizens to have a visit like this, whether it was really needed, and what was if it was really needed, what was this thing that should have been discussed physically and could have not done on a video conference? Thank you.
I don't know, did you understand this question? It was a bit...
Yes, I think I did, yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that despite the masks, we need to look people in the eye. We really need to discuss face-to-face as much as we can. I think the meeting in Lisbon was absolutely productive. we discussed all elements, and the agenda is full, as you see. We have a full agenda of deliverables that we need to put on the ground. We need to discuss how can we use the financial instruments as quickly as possible. How can we better coordinate in terms of COVID? How can we work on the future, on the Conference of the Future of Europe? How can we coordinate on migration? How can we deal with issues related with the US relations or the relations between the EU and UK? What can we do and what are we going to do at international level? So the presence of the President and of the Vice Presidents and also of Commissioner Elisa Ferreira for Cohesion and Reforms and Commissioner Schmidt for Social Affairs was absolutely fundamental for us to keep on the discussion and advance in many of those dossiers, including in the proposal of our conference on social issues. So it was really relevant there present in Lisbon, and I think the results were very good. Unfortunately, we had this, we only knew the situation of the Minister of Finance late that evening because he did a test in the morning. He was supposed to come to the ECOFIN meeting here in Brussels, as I did today. But we kept all the legal health and safety instructions in place. We are very, very, very careful with that. And that is the reason why all other people are considered not close contact. Those were the commissioners that were staying longer in a conversation with the Ministers of Finance, and yet they were all the time with masks, 2 meters the distance, and they were engaging in conversations in very big rooms. But we have to be all the time very, very careful, very careful. We cannot disregard any of this. So the commissioners under the Belgian law decided to do what they have to do. Then on the conference of the future of Europe, no, this was a point of information by the presidency. There was not really a debate. Some member states mentioned that they really would like to see this going forward as soon as possible. Others were saying that we need to proceed cautiously because there is the pandemic and we need to see how to use the digital means and what can we do in the stage we are now. But we didn't discuss any names. We just concentrated in this idea that we need to find a pragmatic and fair solution for the issue of the governance of the conference and proceed as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, do you have anything to add?
I just can confirm what Madam Secretary has just mentioned, because our trip to Portugal was taking place at the beginning of absolutely crucial presidency for Europe. We mentioned it at the beginning. I mean, we are now in a decisive phase of fighting the COVID-19 crisis, rolling out vaccination, preparing how the Europe can get out of this very difficult situation. We've been debating the mutual cooperation and consultations to make sure that we'll be able to disburse first money under the Next Generation EU and MFF for kickstarting the economy, and of course the issues how to re-engage with the Europeans under the umbrella of the Conference of Future in Europe. That was a very working program from the early on in the morning until the last minutes. We've been in the Congress Center all the time, in very big rooms with all the precautionary health requirements fully respecting all the time with face masks. And I really would like to thank Portuguese presidency for being so cautious, being so strict with all the rules which we respected, but also for very productive sessions which I'm sure will help to have very, very productive and important presidency. Thank you.
Thank you. We now open the floor to Momchil Ingyo from Club Z.
Good afternoon. My name is Momchil Ingyo from Club Z Media Group, Bulgaria. Well, my question is a little bit about a different topic. Until now, I didn't hear a single word about the most important event in Europe from the last 24 hours. I mean the arrest of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. So my question is, has been this issue discussed during the council, and if so, could you provide please some details?
Thank you. Yeah, you can go ahead, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much. Indeed, some member states raised the issue, saying, you know, how difficult it was, and the need for the heads of state and government give their attention to this situation, and the presidency took good note, and we yesterday issued already some information about, or some, we made a tweet also, and we also retweeted the positions of the High Representative and of the President of the European Council in the case of Navalny, and of course the leaders, I'm sure, will also refer to this matter during their upcoming meeting on the 21st of January.
Thank you. Vice President, anything to add?
No, I just would echo what Anna Maria just said. That it was quite clear that this is very much on our radar screen. The first reaction from the EU level been made already yesterday. I'm sure that this will be further discussed on the level of foreign ministers and heads of state and government. And I'm sure that you noted that the EU asked for immediate release of Mr. Navalny, but it would be discussed in further details on in appropriate councils. That one of foreign affairs, and I'm sure that the head of states and government will also deal with the issue in the upcoming meetings.
Thank you. We now open the floor to Isabelle Horry from Europe 1.
Bonjour. Ma question porte sur les frontières. La France a dit qu'elle... Ah pardon, attendez.
On t'entend pas.
Ma question porte sur les frontières. La France a dit qu'elle envisageait d'introduire des restrictions à ses frontières, comme l'ont déjà fait un certain nombre de pays européens, avec notamment des tests PCR et une quarantaine, mais qu'elle voulait d'abord qu'il y ait une coordination au niveau européen, et le ministre français des Affaires européennes avait dit qu'il porterait ce sujet aujourd'hui. Je voulais savoir ce qu'une coordination européenne pouvait apporter sur ce thème, étant donné qu'il y a déjà un certain nombre de pays qui ont mis en place ces mesures. Est-ce que vous en avez parlé aujourd'hui aussi? Merci.
Merci, Isabel. Mr. Vice President.
Thank you very much. I think what was quite clear this morning that the situation in all our member states is extremely serious, and of course we see that in some member states the situation is getting worse. Some member states are having over the last 2 days better numbers and indicators, but nobody of course treats this very lightly, and therefore the utmost caution is definitely in place. Concerning the coordination, what is important for the Commission is to make sure that we would be absolutely fair to respect all our principles, all our rights and treaties in the EU, and of course all the prerogatives of the single market, meaning that we are very much advising against closing the borders. We've been always pushing very much, and this is also the case right now, that the borders remain to be open. You know very well about the green lanes, and I'm very glad that today nobody even mentioned that possibility. But at the same time, I understand that because of rising numbers in some cases in a dramatic way, that countries are introducing different health measures to make sure that they would contain and further on reduce the rate of infections. And these issues are discussed in a regular format on the level of the health ministers, on the level of health security committee, and I'm sure that proper coordination also on these very sensitive issues will be ensured. And as you know, the heads of state and government are going to dedicate the next video conference already this Thursday, but all these will be discussed in greater detail. So I think that would be the proof of the coordination taking on the highest possible level.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
I could only add that it's indeed the rate of infection, but it's also this issue of the new variants of the virus that puts some member states a bit cautious, which is understandable. And so, indeed, there is certainly a need for further European coordination, and as the Vice President said, in full respect for our principles and trying to keep the borders, internal borders of the Union open as much as possible. Okay.
Thank you. We now give the word to Tanya Milewska.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Tanya Milewska from the Macedonian News Agency on the vaccines for the Western Balkans. For the Vice President, for the Commissioner Šefčovič. North Macedonia has received vaccines from Serbia today. It has been promised vaccines first by Greece and then by Bulgaria, but nothing is coming up. So I would like to know where are these vaccines for the Western Balkans? And I have a question for the presidency. When do you plan to bring enlargement and the negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia on the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Mr. Vice President, please start.
Thank you very much for this question. It's a very important question indeed, and I'm glad to say that today every delegation which intervene on this issue have been highlighting the importance of our strong solidarity and partnership with the countries of Western Balkans and the countries in our neighborhood, be it east or south. And we also discussed the fact that Europe was very successful in securing doses for more than 1 billion of people in the upcoming months, and that we should be able to share the vaccines with our partners in the Western Balkans, in Eastern Europe and south the European borders. As you know, at this stage we are in our first day of intensive vaccination campaign, and therefore we offered our services as a Commission for the possible coordination of those vaccines which the member states would like to donate from their national shares, which have been distributed on a pro rata principle. And this comes on top of the fact that the European Union is a major investor in COVAX platform, which was meant, and I'm sure will be, as a global response to the pandemic, and which will for sure fulfill its role in providing the necessary vaccines on the global scale. And Europe will continue to be not only a strong supporter, but also will make sure that our cooperation with COVAX would bring the real results in proper and adequate distribution in vaccines to our partners from abroad. Thank you.
On enlargement, I can say that this is one of our priorities in our GAC agenda, and we have started already political contacts with Bulgaria and the Republic of North Macedonia to see how can we achieve this process of finding a way to start the process of having still during our presidency the first intergovernmental conference with the Republic of North Macedonia, but also with Albania. So we believe that there is a need for political discussions, and we will do that, in total trust between the two partners.
Thank you. Let's take the final two questions now. First on David Carretta.
Thank you very much, David Carretta, Radio Radicale, Italian Radio. I would have two questions, if I may. The first one is on the conference on the future of Europe. What is a pragmatic solution to the issue of governance? And is there a consensus among member states on the duration of the conference? The second question to Vice President Šefčovič, it's on the Brexit deal, or the post-Brexit deal, I should say. Are you going to ask more time to ratify the agreement, and if yes, until when? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Madam Sister.
Well, thank you very much. What is a pragmatic solution? Pragmatic solution is something that can take us out of the current impasse. The conference should have started on the 9th of May during the Croatian presidency, and so we really need to start, and so we need to have to continue the discussions that the German presidency started, and building on what they put forward, we need to engage in this discussion with Parliament, between Parliament, Commission and the Council, to find a way out in this joint declaration that we have to produce. And on the duration of the conference, no, we didn't address that. It's an issue that we need to discuss, because the current mandate says 2 years. 1 year has already elapsed, so we need to see what is the best way to proceed. But so far there was not even a discussion on the duration of the conference. But it's something that we need to address in the future, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on the Brexit deal, as I'm sure you heard us already saying, that the trade and cooperation agreement between the European Union and the United Kingdom is a fair deal. As you know, that the negotiations were very arduous and very, very, very detailed, and that Michel Barnier did it utmost to inform the European Parliament and the Council at every step on that long journey, about every milestone, about every element which been in his mandate, and I think it was on several occasions very much appreciated by the members of the European Parliament, but also by the ministers in the Council. Therefore, we very much appreciate our close collaboration and cooperation with the European Parliament, and we aimed at making everything to make sure that we would complete the ratification process by the end of February. And we welcome the readiness of the European Parliament to even have additional plenary if this would be needed in February. And from our side, we clearly made clear to the European Parliament that we are available at any time on the top political level, on the level of chief negotiator, or on the level of technical experts to provide all the necessary details and explanations to the members of the European Parliament so they can fully use the right to study the deal carefully before giving the consent. So it's very much in the process, and we do our utmost to complete all the procedures by the end of February.
Thank you. This is all the time we have for today. I thank you all for joining us, and see you tomorrow.